friend of mine was doing a nutrition class, and she gave me a 3-day food diary to fill out. Just, she asked me if I would, and I thought, oh, well, I eat better than most Americans. I'm a vegetarian, and I've been what I call a Milky Way vegetarian for most of my life, from age 21 to 47. And so I expected her to come back with, oh, you eat great. So she came back and she said, you eat horribly. You need to change your diet completely, because, like I said, I was addicted to Milky Ways. I was a cheese addict. I only ate processed foods.
Welcome to the Crisco and Company podcast. I'm your host, Lee Crisco, MD. Our guest today is Dr. Kim Scheurer, MD. She's board certified in family medicine and lifestyle medicine and has practiced in the Aspen, Colorado area for over 20 years. She believes that patients can prevent, reverse, and slow chronic disease to live more full, happy, and healthy lives. She is passionate about teaching what she has learned to help her patients live their best lives to the fullest. She's now practicing in Toledo, Colorado. Well, Kim, thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no, we're really, really happy to have this conversation with you. One question I'd like to ask people is, how did you stumble into the plant-based medicine thing?
So I'm a family practitioner and practiced traditional family medicine for 20 years plus. And at age 47, I realized my mother had breast cancer at age 48. And I was like, well, how do I prevent myself from getting breast cancer? A little late, but whatever. I'd also struggled with weight issues for all of my life. From the age of 13, when I stopped growing up and started growing out, I'd struggled with weight issues. And so I read the book, The China Study, and saw Forks Over Knives. A friend of mine was doing a nutrition class, and she gave me a 3-day food diary to fill out. Just, she asked me if I would, and I thought, oh, well, I eat better than most Americans. I'm a vegetarian, and I've been what I call a Milky Way vegetarian for most of my life, from age 21 to 47. And so I expected her to come back with, oh, you eat great. And when I read the China Study and watched Forks Over Knives, what I saw about breast cancer blew my mind, and started to do some more research. So she came back and she said, you eat horribly. You need to change your diet completely, because, like I said, I was addicted to Milky Ways. I was a cheese addict. I only ate processed foods. And so I said, but I can't do this. I'd never liked salads or anything green. And she said, I'll make you a green smoothie right now. Made it for me. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to eat that. It's got kale and cucumber and it's green. And she made me taste it. And I was like, oh, this is pretty okay. This actually tastes good. And then she said she would cook for me for a month. I had green smoothies for a month. She cooked for me for a month because I couldn't cook at the time. I didn't have the time. I was very, very busy in my practice. And in that month, my weight plummeted, my cholesterol plummeted, my energy went sky high, my physical abilities, because I love hiking and being up in the mountains and skiing and things like that, just took off. I have never in all of my life been able to eat as much as I wanted and lose weight. And I mean, because I had struggled. And so, the only reason I checked my cholesterol, because in my office, I was training a new person and I had my cholesterol checked beforehand, and it was normal, but it was normal for the standard American diet and not healthy. And then a month later, because I just was training one of my coworkers on how to draw blood, and she sent it in, it plummeted. And it was just such a bizarre situation. So that combination of my own experience starting to read about it and learn about it and getting quite upset that I didn't know about this stuff. I was in training. I was in residency in 1997. And, Dean Ornish had come out with, this great paper in Lancet that I knew nothing about.
Mm-hmm.
And just couldn't believe it. So started to study it on my own, went and changed my life completely. It was wonderful. My palate changed. Now I was craving salads after the month of smoothies, of green smoothies, and started using it with my patients and changed their lives. My patients would get off medicines, not struggle with their weight, all the same things that happened to me. Their diseases would reverse. I'd be able to say, you're no longer diabetic, you're no longer hypertensive, you're no longer hypercholesterolemic, dyslipidemic. It was insane. And then I didn't worry about breast cancer. I ended up reading Breast, the Owner's Manual by Dr. Christy Funk. And
it's a good book.
Oh, it's a great book. Any woman should read that. Any man who loves a woman who should read that. It's anybody who has a mother or a sister or a daughter, anything. It's a great book. And it was just, wow, the differences that we weren't taught in medical school. And then I started to use it with my patients and decided I needed to live the lifestyle I was trying to teach my patients, because food is paramount, but there's also sleep and stress and, avoiding toxins and movement and exercise. I mean, there's so many components that you can put in there, and it just takes care of 80 to 90% of what I used to see in my patients in my office of chronic diseases, everything from hypertension, high cholesterol, depression, polycystic ovarian syndromes, menopausal symptoms, everything like that just improves significantly, and health improves and weight improves. And it's incredible.
It is absolutely incredible. In that book, Breast, the User's Manual, one part that it was burned into my mind was she makes the claim that 50% of premenopausal breast cancer and 80% of postmenopausal cancer could be averted if people ate a proper diet, and in the China study, which you alluded to, he gets into a lot of details about why that's true. And one of the things that's amazing about the China study, which is a bit of a paradigm shifter, is that we do focus on environmental toxins, and there's actually nothing wrong with that. But it was like the paradigm shift was the environmental toxins only really matter in the presence of animal protein, right? The animal proteins are necessary for these cancers to manifest, and you could dial up and dial down the activity of these tumors with the presence or absence, or varying the amount of casein, which is the main milk protein. I mean, it's just staggering. And of course, they verified it with other proteins and different toxins, whether it be aflatoxin or I forget what other toxins they use. So there's kind of a paradigm shift looking at cancer, where like the key thing is not just the toxins, but it's the presence or absence of animal protein. And then of course they went on and did that huge epidemiological study in China, where the patterns emerged, where the more animal protein, the more chronic disease, and the differences were huge. And the range of protein that they were consuming compared to Americans, it was only about 1/113th, I believe, the average Chinese person versus the average American. It was a much smaller range of protein, but within that range, there were huge differences in the amount of cancer. But I had an interesting conversation yesterday at work. We recently moved to Iowa from Minneapolis, and unfortunately, we've noted like there's a lot of overweight people in Minnesota, but I think it's actually worse in Iowa. And the problem is, I think that the food habits are just so culturally embedded, right? Behavior becomes just this automatic programming for people. How do you, as a clinician, deal with that? Patient comes in with you, they got a problem. How do you move the needle on their behavior? Like, what sort of strategies you use? Because that's the thing that I find fascinating. How do you affect changes in people?
There are so many ways, and it just depends on who comes to me, where they're at. Try to meet them where they're at and then change. But education, number one. I mean, almost all of my patients got How Not to Die. And now people are going to get How Not to Age. And these are books by Dr. Michael Greger, who have changed my life. I tell them to just go on to nutritionfacts.org. But so a couple of things I will do is make sure people realize that genetics doesn't have to be their future. You can change the genetics. I thought there's no question I'm going to get breast cancer, and I had colon cancer in my family. And I mean, my mom and grandmother were diagnosed on the same day, one with breast, one with colon. I'm being told, because I was just about to start medical school and now know the links with that. And so I thought, oh my gosh, this is my destiny. Now I know it's not my destiny. And it's great. So I start with teaching people, one, it's not your destiny. Maybe your parents had this, but that doesn't mean you have to have this. And I give them tons of education. But then I start with, okay, start with adding things. Add some fruits every day. Add some vegetables every day. Try and put in the good things. And that kind of sort of blocks out the bad things. Like for me, putting in the good, like having a green smoothie every day for a month, completely changed my palate and my nutrition, and my body appreciated it. And I felt so much better. I was like, I didn't believe it at the time. I didn't want to do it at the time, but I would never go back now. And so adding things in is number one. Sometimes you have to change your environment. Like, for example, I'm a food addict. I am a chocoholic. And I had to learn to keep my environment, my house, absolutely clean. I can't have, I'm not really good with willpower. I love to eat, and it doesn't matter to me if it tastes good or it's healthy. I just love to eat. So I had to get everything unhealthy out and just keep it healthy in. And that affected my partner, because I said to him, you can do whatever you want, but it can't be in my house. And so we would go out and he could eat whatever he wanted. But over the years, my meat eating, unhealthy, overweight partner, now his blood pressure, cholesterol, weight has all improved just because he saw what happened to me. He continues, he had to be clean in the house. And over the years, he's switched. So being a good example helps. In my practice, people would come to me and eventually I'd be known as Dr. Kale. Oh, you're gonna be the one to give me a healthy diet. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna suggest that, because that is the healthiest way to live. And how you do it makes a difference. And so giving lots of booklets and books and helping out, and then having people, even just walking in my neighborhood. I have my neighbors who I had moved to Salida from Aspen, Colorado, during the middle of COVID, and I would just walk the streets and they'd pass by me on the streets, and just giving information when they ask me, oh, tell me about yourself. What do you do? And I've changed 11 families here. And now all have potlucks that are health-based, and it's just so much fun. I wish I could do more, because can be very evangelistic about it, but I try, and that's not necessarily good, but I try and reach people where it makes a difference for them. For example, if you're a young male who's athletic, who wants to improve your performance, go watch The Game Changers, or read these handouts that I give them about performance and protein and all that, because there's a lot of bro science out there. There's a lot of bad information on the internet, where people love to hear good things about their bad habits. And there's so much conflicting information. And I just go to people who come to me, what have you tried before? Well, I've tried Atkins, and I've tried this, all kinds of different diets that are all basically the same. I said, how's that working for you? It's not. let's try something radically different. Give me 2 weeks, give me a month. You can do anything for a month, and some people won't do that. And I'm like, just give me 2 weeks then and do a completely clean. And, some people are like, I can't do that. Well, I thought I couldn't do it. And I realized that I had lived in Sri Lanka for 2 years, and I was in the Peace Corps for 2 years, and that's a Buddhist country, and they don't eat meat. And I remember that I lived for 2 years basically vegan, and it was just because I lived in that country, and I was like, oh, it was delicious. The food was amazing. And I didn't even think about that. I was like, oh, well, I'm not going to be eating my hamburgers because I'm in Sri Lanka. I'm not going to be doing this. And I didn't miss it. So you just have to change your mindset a bit. Yeah. And for a short period of time, change what you're doing. See how it works. You're going to feel so good that, in my case, I would never go back. I would never go back. And I love what I eat now. And I love how I feel.
I feel exactly the same. And Joyce is the same. Like, once you make that shift and your palate changes, you really don't want to go back. Like, green smoothies, I mean, they're awesome. I mean, it used to taste like grass clippings to me, but I really enjoy them now. And I think you're totally right, because, one thing we noticed when we moved to Iowa, like, everybody seems to be heavy. And yet they just don't know any better. And I think they're a product of their environment. And the thing that I find a little bit frustrating, looking at as a radiologist, I go through people's charts all the time to get more information and whatnot. And these people that aren't that old are on like reams of medication. Yeah. And I'm thinking, it just doesn't have to be that way. And, we tend to just sort of nibble around the edges, tweak their blood pressure pills, tweak their diabetic pills. And yet all we're doing is sort of hitting, base hits when we could be hitting home runs. If the doctors would come to understand this and advocate it, and you could make just massive changes in people's health. Yeah. I had the same experience as you. Like, when I made the switch, my cholesterol plummeted, my blood sugar plummeted, my endurance just skyrocketed. And I was doing a combination of sort of both endurance stuff and weight training. And I lost about 16 pounds without even really trying. And I wasn't really even overweight. I went from being lean to really lean, and I did not lose any strength at all. My strength was exactly the same, and my endurance went way up. And so you reach this point, it's like, no one's taking my plant-based diet away from me now. Now, what do? You have a patient comes in, they've got a medical problems that are amenable to, plant-based nutrition. How do you get them to navigate their family? The family may not be interested in making these changes.
That is very difficult, and it's so much easier if your family's involved. So, but I have so many patients who families are listening to the contradictory information on the internet and things like that, and think that they're getting unhealthy by doing what I say. But I start with a couple things. What would your great-grandmother say, your grandmother say? Eat more veggies, eat more fruit. That's not going to hurt you to do that. And so we start with that. I sometimes have to do a split kitchen. You have your food in a refrigerator in the garage, or down in the basement, or you have your food on, you separate out your food from their food, or ask for certain shelves in the refrigerator. Like, if you're shorter than your partner, you get the lower shelf, they get the higher shelf, so you can look at healthier things. And I really, really push watching movies together. Like, for example, my brother and my nephew, who live in an unhealthier place and have some unhealthier habits, I said, for my birthday, all I want from you is an hour and a half of your time. Watch this movie with me. And they can't say no for a birthday request like that. So they had to sit there and watch the Game Changers with me. And it was so funny to watch their faces just change. So I asked people to watch What the Health, Forks Over Knives, the Game Changers, different, plant pure, all kinds of different movies, and I base it on what they're interested in. Are they interested in personal health? Are they interested in the environment? Are they interested in animal rights? Are they interested in what really hits them the most? And I ask them to watch that with their family. I ask them to ask their family to be respectful of them. For example, they're not doing this without doctors' support. Mm-hmm. They're getting doctor support. So I say, I'm working with you. So you say, I am not doing this just willy-nilly. I'm doing it with a doctor's support. We're looking at my blood labs. We're looking at my blood pressure. We're looking at my weight. We're looking at all of these things. So I'm not doing something that's way out there. And please support me in trying to do what's best for my health, for me. I'm not going to put this on you, but please support. Don't get in my way or don't sabotage me. And lots of people do sabotage family members. Mm-hmm. So then you just got to be strong and just say, this is for me. It has nothing to do with you. Please just let me be me and try this. Because one, I've seen it work. Two, my doctor says this is the healthiest for me. And then I do give studies to some of the patients who, don't trust it and then want their family members to understand. So I'll have them give your family the book, How Not to Die, or how, not to diet, or how not to age now, and or Undo It, or by Dr. Dean Ornish, or things like that, and just have them at least look at that, and then they can make their own decisions and either be supportive or not be unsupportive.
Do you practice both the plant-based telehealth and in a traditional medical practice? Do you do both?
So I'm wearing this only because it's cold down here. Oh. I do both now, but so I started in traditional family practice. I worked, I was hospitalist, I was hybrid hospitalist. I've done all of that. I own my own practice for about 20 some odd years in Aspen, Colorado. I had multiple employees and things, but I really decided that I needed to start living the lifestyle I was prescribing for my patients, and had planned before COVID hit to change to lifestyle medicine. I got boarded in lifestyle medicine, and I had planned to do more lifestyle medicine. I started teaching the Complete Health Improvement Program, which was started by Dr. Hans Deal, who was amazing, and started to do my own lifestyle medicine with patients. I would do it in my practice, but I would only have 15 minutes to see patients. And there's just no way, unless I had one person who came at the end of the day and my last patient canceled. So I absolutely was able to say, you're on insulin, you're diabetic, this isn't working, let's try something radically different. Got her off of an insulin within 2 weeks. She changed her life drastically. But I was only lucky to have time with her on that one. Because and I wanted more of that. So I started my own, something called Docs Lifestyle Medicine. Derek Olson, Kim Scheurer. Derek Olson's my partner. He was a ICU and hospice nurse who got hit by a car and smushed, and basically almost died. And so during his recovery, he became plant-based because he was at my house, and he had no choice. He was in a wheelchair. He couldn't move. He only had use of his left hand for months and months and months. So he only ate what I gave him. And during his recovery, he needed to change what he was doing too, because he could no longer lift heavy patients and things like that. So we started Docs together and started doing lifestyle medicine in Aspen. And then I joined plant-based telehealth because I wanted to get more national, and I was moving over to Salida, and I knew that I might not have the same community support or finances to be able to do Docs there. Everybody knew me there, so it was easy. Then plant-based telehealth, which I love, got taken over by Love.Life Telehealth, which is Mackey from Whole Foods took it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. John Mackey. Yeah.
yeah, John Mackey, and got taken over, and we joined in with Mastering Diabetes, and it's been great. And so now we're Love.Life Telehealth, but I just don't have a shirt for that. So right now I see patients in more than 23 states, I think I'm licensed in, and all around the world. I do lifestyle medicine, but in lifestyle medicine, I do traditional medicine. I see people with cancer, with heart disease, with diabetes, and I deal with their medical issues. So but I have more time now. We do traditional medicine through lifestyle medicine. And it's great because my favorite thing now is deprescribing medications. And I get people in and I deprescribe, but I'm still a physician. So I've had people come to me and they're like, I have type 2 diabetes and everything I'm doing is not working, and I'm trying what you're telling me. And I'm like, I'm not sure you have type 2 diabetes. Let's do some testing and make sure you don't have type 1.5 or what's called LADA, which is an autoimmune disease in adults where they are attacking their own pancreas. And, oh, you do have LADA and you do need meds, but you still need to do the lifestyle stuff because that helps. But you're not doing anything wrong, and the meds will keep you healthy for the rest of your life. So yes, you need medications, and thankfully we have certain medications. You have cancer, there is great things you can do to improve your lifestyle and improve your risk of dying from that cancer or recurrence. But that doesn't mean that some people don't need traditional chemotherapy and radiation and surgeries. Let's get you through that and make you healthier when you're on the other side. And so I do traditional with lifestyle, and it's just wonderful.
How much, when you see a telehealth patient, how much time do you have with them?
Minimum 30 minutes and maximum an hour, but it's different than in my traditional medical practice, because in my traditional medical practice, maybe I'd have a 30-minute visit, but it would take 15 minutes for the front staff to get them together, then another 10 minutes for them to get put back into a room and get their vitals and stuff. And so I'd have maybe sometimes 10 minutes, sometimes 5 minutes, rarely would I have the full amount. I mean, almost never, actually never. Now I have 100% of the time where I have full time with my patients because they do their own vitals before they see me, if they can, or, they fill out their paperwork before they see me. I have that information all looked at. And especially for a new patient, I look at a huge amount of information before the first visit. And it takes me almost an hour before the first visit to go through their information. And then I have the visit with them. In follow-ups, I go through their information and I get their charts ready before I even see them and look at their recent labs, look at different information. And so I'm ready. And from the minute we start to the minute we're done, 30 minutes or an hour. And for complicated patients, I love an hour. For many patients, I love an hour just because it's not rushed. But if needed, I will take the half an hour and I will use every single second of it to maximize their time with me. And then I send them all kinds of information afterwards. I tend to give a lot of information, and then you can take from it what you want now or later. And I do, I try to tell people, please don't be overwhelmed with this. Take what you need right now. And some people take everything and some people pick and choose. But at least they have the information and they can use it. So it's completely different than my old practice in that we really do focus on how lifestyle affects everything. But sometimes we just also focus just on the medical issues. For example, if somebody's got newly diagnosed with cancer, we go into the details of, what to expect in the next year, what to expect with, we can go through everything, and things that sometimes other doctors don't have enough time to talk to their patients about.
So they're two very different environments. You've got one environment where you're lucky if you have 10 minutes, and they may be coming to you not knowing anything about the plant-based things, but whereas the telehealth patients, they probably have some bias or information about the value of plant-based nutrition. I could see quite the contrast. Like in this small hospital in Iowa where I'm working, there's actually a couple of physicians that have some interest in plant-based nutrition. But, you know, being a traditional setting, they've just gotten minutes to just sort of stick their toe in the water, trying to broach the whole concept of plant-based nutrition. So I think that your situation now with telehealth is really enviable to be able to take the time and work with people. Now, tell us, I noticed in your resume through Love Life Telehealth that you have an interest in food addiction. Is it really true that people can be addicted to food?
Absolutely. Hi, I'm Kim Scheurer. I'm a chocoholic. Absolutely. It isn't, you know, there's a DSM, which is a psychiatric book that talks about medical psychiatric issues. They don't accept food addiction yet as a true addiction. If you look at all of the things on food addiction, it fits. Do you do things that are unhealthy to your body and you know it, even though you know it? So for me, yeah, I would eat, if there were Milky Way bars here, I would eat that many of them, even though I know it's not healthy for me, because I'm addicted to that. I'm not addicted to some other things about foods, but that is one that I can never have a Milky Way bar again. Do you crave? Yes. There's all kinds of things that fit with addiction that fit with food addiction. Also, they've done studies that show that the same dopamine reactions in your brain for using heroin happens with food addiction. You know, you have the same metabolic changes and chemical changes in your brain. And what's really interesting is you can use some of the medicines that we use for food addiction, naltrexone and things like that, which will affect food addiction, you know, your desire for foods and eating foods. So I absolutely 100% believe that some people are food addicted. I think more people in this country have food issues, and not true addictions, but we're so inundated with unhealthy options in grocery stores, unhealthy commercials, that it's hard you get used to it, you get immune to it, but you're not necessarily addicted. I actually have a food addiction problem. And so when I do things like I used to, for example, I was plant-based for a year, went to Italy, and decided I'm going to go to Italy. I'm eating. So I started having cheese again, and casomorphine, which is in cheese, morphine, affects your brain the same way. After 4 days, I gained weight, felt like terrible. I couldn't believe, I was like, oh. And I was like, I can't do this. I can't believe I felt like this before. I got to stop. So I stopped, but still, you know, after 4 days, I ended up eating for the next 2 weeks in Italy, healthier foods, and was so happy I had changed it, but I still had that craving. And realized I can't do that again. I don't want to do it again. It's so much easier. I used to think that because of my food addiction, I've done everything in my life, from age 13 to 47, from starving myself. I tried to be bulimic. Thankfully, I couldn't. I just binged. I never could vomit. So that was lucky in my case, because I would have. But I've tried everything until I went plant-based, and now am much more in better control of it.
I was very interested, like in your resume, mentioning the naltrexone. Just for so our listeners know, that's a drug used traditionally to treat opioid addiction.
Yes.
And I knew that it also has had success with alcohol addiction. That's the first time I've ever seen it actually be used for food addiction,
Yes.
Which is just fascinating.
I used to think, oh, I wish I was an alcoholic because I could just stop drinking, or I wish I was a tobacco user. I could just stop smoking. I can't stop eating. But that's the wrong way to think about it, because alcoholics need to drink water. They just can't drink alcohol. Smokers need to breathe in air. They just can't breathe in tobacco smoke. I need to eat. I cannot eat the trigger foods that get me into addiction. And so changing that mindset made a huge difference in my life regarding the addiction.
Yeah, I'm sure you've read The Pleasure Trap by Doctors Lyle and Goldhammer. That is such an interesting book and explains so much about why people are in the straits that they are right now, being overweight and sick. And like you said, basically the mechanisms are the same, whether you're talking about cocaine or Milky Way bars. I had this conversation with this physician yesterday. I was telling her about, I've been whole plant-based for years, and I was trying to educate her on some of these issues about, carbohydrates aren't necessarily bad and that type of thing. But I said, one of the problems with traditional dietary advice that you were going to get, say, through a hospital dietitian or whatever, is they'll say, all foods are okay in moderation. But for many people, that's not going to work because you're literally feeding the addiction. Like, it is not a joke that food can be addicting. It's literally true. Yeah. And so I could see how people would have limited progress with that sort of approach. And people are different. Like myself, I know if I was to go out for pizza with like plant-based cheese on it, there's no way I'm having one piece, right? Like, I'll eat tons of it, but the next day I'll be right back on track. But that's not going to be the case for everyone. Some people have to like go a very narrow path. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely agree. There are some people who can have a drink of alcohol every once in a while, and it doesn't hit that addictive pathology. I can have certain things. Like I love chocolate. So I've found that I can have dark chocolate because I don't love the taste of it so much. But milk chocolate, no, that sets me off. And so you have to know your own triggers. We would never, ever, never say to an alcoholic, oh, here, just try a little sip. It's okay. I get that all the time when I'm at family things or at a friend's house. Oh, just take a little bit. Well, some things I can take a little bit of and I'll pay for it because I'll have cravings. But some things I know I can't. I can't have caramel with milk chocolate in any form because I know I will that may trigger me over the edge, and I never want to feel that again. I never want to get that. I never want to go back. Yeah. And so I'm much happier just saying, oh, no, thank you. It's okay. It's so much easier for me now to say no. And I see that with my patients who are addicted to alcohol or addicted to gambling or addicted to other things. There's another book called Dopamine Nation, which is very good, which talks about addiction. And there's a small section about food, but there's everything about all kinds of other addictions. And I don't understand why it's okay to say, oh, have a little bit of this, even though it's come from a place of love. It's not helpful. It can be very harmful. And so I just have to tell my patients, you need to do this for you. This is all about you, not anybody else. And I do think for some people, abstinence is very important. For me, that is the case. Not for everybody. My significant other doesn't have that issue with certain things. He can do certain things that I would never have been able to do in my life without being addicted. I never tried certain drugs because, like cocaine, I knew that would put me on a wrong path because I know I have an addictive personality. And right now, I'd rather be addicted to health and happiness and life. Now, some people say that's orthorexia, where I'm addicted to health. Well, okay, I'm changed my addiction from unhealthy to healthy. You can say what you want about that, but I'm happy and I'm healthier than so many people. I can beat my younger brothers up a mountain. And I
Mhm.
don't think that's a bad thing.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's how I look at it.
Yeah, I think, the problem is like very few people really understand that food can be addictive. They think it's just kind of a joke. And like you say, you would never, try to tempt a known alcoholic with a little bit of alcohol. But I sort of have an issue with that whole concept of orthorexia because really what you and I object to are eating foods that wouldn't really exist in nature. And we're just saying we want to eat natural food that promotes health. I don't think that that is a pathology. I really don't. I mean, if eating correctly makes you healthy, how can you say that that's a pathology? But just changing gears, I noticed that you have an interest in autoimmunity, and I'm interested in the connection with plant-based nutrition. We had Brooke Goldner on the show a while back, and she's got a fascinating story where she treats people with autoimmunity with like green smoothies. And this summer we had a ton of kale in our garden. And so for a while there, I was having green smoothies, every day with a ton of kale. I mean, I eat green vegetables all the time, but I was eating a especially large amount of, raw, fresh kale in the smoothies. And I'd had a little bit of plaque psoriasis on my elbow on my elbows for years. And then I went on this green smoothie kick and it actually went away, which was amazing. I wasn't expecting that. But tell us about autoimmunity and diet.
Sure. So inflammation is huge in so many things. It's huge in heart disease, in Alzheimer's and things like that. And it's huge in autoimmunity. Your body will attack itself for many, many different reasons, but autoimmunity has something to do with that. And part of it has to do with what we're putting in our bodies. So as Dr. Goldner says, Brooke Goldner says, you want to hypernutrient yourself. You want to get rid of any triggers that can make your body want to attack itself, and you want to have your body heal itself. So our bodies want to heal. If you hit your hand with a hammer all the time, it's not going to heal. I mean, I can give you some Tylenol, which will help with the pain, but that's not going to heal. But if we stop the trigger that's hurting our body tends to want to heal. And that's the same thing with autoimmunity. For people with autoimmune issues, you have to be extremely diligent about that. It's not just a little bit. And this is where, it depends on whether you're a young person, an old person, where you are in your disease path. Have you had this disease for a long time or a little time? How strict you have to be. But with autoimmunity, you want to be as clean as possible. You want to stop things, you stop ingesting or putting on things or doing things like stress in your life that increase inflammation, increase your body's tendency to attack itself. And so you're avoiding that and you're adding in all the things that will help your body heal. So, and each one of us, like with different food addictions, you have different things that trigger your body. And some people, when they go from a toxic environment of feeding their body toxins, of being in stress all the time, of not sleeping and all that, some people do extremely well in reverse autoimmunity. Some people need to be more diligent than others. And some people, everyone improves. It's just how much they improve. So, and that's on how much you need to change. Dr. Goldner is amazing. She changed from end stage autoimmune disorder to fully healthy and being able to have children and living a full life. She shouldn't be alive given what she had when she was a young child. And it's great. So that's where the art of medicine comes in. How much do you need to change? For some people, I say you need to, every little bit helps. So move this way. For some people, I'm like, oh no, you need to be 100% at this point. We are reversing disease. And once you have an autoimmune disease, you really need to reverse. It's not prevention. So you need to be even more diligent about being healthy in every aspect of your life and every aspect of lifestyle medicine than somebody who is preventing or is early on, or, I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, people know about peanut allergies. There's some people are so allergic to peanuts that they can't even, smell the fumes of a peanut without triggering a serious reaction. And I'm sure the same is true with other autoimmune conditions. But Dr. Goldhammer from True North, he says he loves treating people with autoimmunity because they have to comply 100%, or else, they just don't get better. I'm curious to see what you think about this trend, this common trend towards keto and even this carnivore diet. I had a thing come up in my YouTube feed the other day. There was a woman that wrote a book called The Great Plant Con or something like that. She was being interviewed by a meat-based MD, and they were both disparaging the idea of veganism. And it was frustrating. I couldn't get through the whole thing because what they were saying was just so flat out wrong. Like they made statements like, well, you can't get enough certain nutrients, like there isn't enough omega-3 fatty acids, there isn't any vitamin A. I mean, there was little tiny grains of truth. Like, yes, you don't get EPA, DHA from plant-based nutrition, but most people can, lengthen out those chains biochemically, or you can take an algae-based supplement, which is the best way to do it. It's better than a fish-based thing because you're getting the organic pollutants and the heavy metals. Yes, my understanding is true. Like you don't really get vitamin A per se from plants, but you get beta carotene, which is better because then your body can figure out how much it needs to turn into vitamin A because vitamin A is potentially toxic. And so there's all these little partial truths and misconceptions that they'll say to win people over to this idea that they want to hear that it's good to eat all this meat and stuff. And I find it really aggravating. Here's an MD who is using his credibility as an MD to get people to undertake these lifestyle habits that could be incredibly damaging. This morning, I was looking at a blog from Dr. Greger about the keto diet. And he says, right out of the chute, you're deficient in 17 nutrients when you go on a keto diet. And if you're to make up the recommended daily intake on a keto diet of these various nutrients, you'd have to eat 37,000 calories a day to meet your minimum requirements of these 17 nutrients. And yet, this is very popular because you can get these quick results. What are your thoughts?
Well, I have a couple of different thoughts on this. One is look at the doctor who's telling you this. For example, Atkins, who ended up dying overweight of heart disease, versus Furman, who is at his age in incredible shape, So that's one. Two, look at what they're trying to sell you. So to be on some of these diets, like the keto and the paleo and the carnivore diet, they're selling you supplements, that you have to take to make up for the losses that you're having. So that's another thing to look at. What are they trying to sell you? I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm trying to sell you, do what I say and not see me anymore, or get off your medicines. My goal is to make this whole world healthier. Individuals, the planet, the animals, everything. I didn't start this for animal rights or the planet's right, the health of the planet, but I started for my own health. But then you get to see all of this more and more. We cannot sustain keto and paleo diets. And yes, you're exactly right. Little truths are blown up to have people have, oh, I need meat for this reason. No, you don't. And if you look at the blue zones and the healthiest, longest living, healthiest groups in the world, they're not keto or paleo or carnivore. They are plant forward, plant-based. And so if you have to look at the studies, and studies can be manipulated, but look at who wrote the study. Was it the egg board that says that eggs are healthy? Follow the money. Follow the money. What do people want? And, it's the same thing with smoking and Philip Morris and all those people. They use the same lawyers and advertisers as they're using now in the keto world and the meat-based world. They want to sow confusion. They want to give doubt so that you can say, oh, I need this. Butter is good, butter is not good, all that stuff. But if you look at the studies, you look at the World Health Organization, you look at the healthiest populations, you actually look at the data, there's no question that a plant-based, plant-forward diet is the best way to go. And in my thinking, you should be fully plant-based, but not everybody's going to be. But, so move towards it and do your own self-experiment. Yes, you can lose tons of weight on a keto diet immediately and change your sugar levels and things like that. It's not sustainable. All those studies are more short-term and not long-term. And you're changing one little thing to lose some weight quickly, but increase your all-cause mortality 30%. So I can get you to lose weight by giving you cocaine or amphetamines.
Right.
Not sustainable. It's not healthy. My goal is a whole lifestyle change that you can do forever, that's healthy and sustainable and fun and cheap and makes you live as long as you can. Nobody's going to live forever. Everybody's going to die, but I don't want your last 10 years to be on medications, in hospitals, spending money on meds that you don't need, supplements that you don't need, that you can live without and live healthier without. So those are the things I suggest people look at. And then I also, look at what you've tried before. You've tried every single iteration of this, starting from like the Scarsdale diet to this diet to that diet. No, it never worked. It never did anything. Try something radically different. See what it does on yourself. Look at your weight. Look at your blood pressure. Look at your cholesterol. I've had people plummet their cholesterol in 2 weeks, plummet their A1Cs, which is a 3-month average. I've seen that change within 2 weeks, which I never thought was possible, and getting off medications. And so, do your own experiment. Rochester Lifestyle Medicine Institute has a great program. It's a 15-day jumpstart that shows amazing stuff. The CHIP program, which used to be there, the Complete Health Improvement Program, now is Pivio. You will see in a short period of time, decreasing your blood pressure, decreasing your cholesterol, decreasing of all your weight, risk factors. You'll feel better. You'll feel lighter. Your brain changes. Do an experiment on yourself and see.
Yeah. Well, one thing I tell people is like the reason the whole food plant-based thing is different, because as time goes on, the longer you do it, the easier it gets. If you go on a carb restricted diet or a calorie restricted diet, the longer you do it, the harder it gets. And my understanding, if you look at people that go on carb restricted diets, you look at them 2 years out, I mean, they're back to where they started, basically. There's really no long-term benefit with all the detriment towards their cholesterol and whatnot. But you were talking about the environment. I was listening to a podcast with Simon Hill a few weeks ago. He was with an environmental scientist whose name escapes me, but he's a big advocate of, moving away from meat and that sort of thing. And he said that, there's this concept that if the meat is grass-fed, it's suddenly healthier, which of course is not true, because you still have the cholesterol, the saturated fat, the heme iron, the TMAO, excess methionine, et cetera, lack of fiber, lack of antioxidants, lack of phytonutrients, et cetera, et cetera. But he said, if everybody in the United States was, rather than having factory farmed meat, they all ate grass-fed meat. And then we're not even talking about like a full carnivore diet, just shifting to all grass-fed for the amount of meat they're already eating. You would have to use every square inch of the lower 48 states and dedicate it to meat production. And you still wouldn't have enough land, right? And so it's completely environmentally unsustainable. We had Dr. Furman on the interview a while ago, and I really like talking to him. He's very knowledgeable. But I heard him on a different podcast, and he was saying that when people make the switch, if they just sort of jump in whole hog, which is one way to do it, they will experience withdrawal symptoms that may, like, just like an addict, that may go on for like 6 days.
Yeah.
I can't say that I didn't really experience that, but some people do. And so I can see how that would be sort of an impediment. But you advocate more of like a gradual approach.
It depends on the person.
Hmm.
So some people, yes, start with breakfast and go to maybe the next week lunches or whatever, or one meal a day. For some people, go all in. I went all in, and it was great for me.
Mhm.
And I'm an all-in kind of person. So it depends on the person and their situation. So whatever works best for you, the more you go in, the faster you go in, and the more completely you go in, the faster you see changes.
Mhm.
And that's easier for some people than others. And for me, that was the way to go. But I work with people who it's not that way. They need to go slower and just add a little bit at a time. So, it just depends on the person and how to get them to go move more towards, or today, I have people who say, oh, I'll start Monday. I'm like, why not start right now?
Mhm.
Why not? Start immediately, because the quicker you start, the more you go in, the faster you see results. If it's hard for you to do that, and for some people it really is, and I do warn people, you're going to have, depending, on how plant-based they are to begin with, but if they are fully on a standard American diet and eating crap,
Mhm.
they're going to hurt for the first 4 or 5 days. And I tell them, you're going to hate me. Feel free to yell at me in your head. Feel free to curse me out. I don't care. Do this for a week. I'm going to see you in a week, and you tell me how you're doing 5 days in, because then you'll start to feel great. And some people I do, we talk about some fasting. We talk about time restricted eating. There's all kinds of different tools in the tool belt that we can use. But my goal is to get people healthier. And I talk to people about, okay, what's your goal? Well, you're worried about weight. Well, great, but let's get you healthier. The weight will come off. Or you're worried about this. Let's do this because it will make a difference. And look at all of the different gurus, but take what's important for you, because some people do well with a ferment diet. Some people do well with a McDougall diet. Some people do well with a Esselstyn diet. Some people do well with a Ornish diet. Most people do well with their own one that's for them. For me, it's a Kim diet. It's a Kim Scheurer diet. I do really, really, really well with more complex carbs and tofu and, fruits and green veggies. But some people who need just green veggies or need, everybody does better with their own diet. So I try to work on that with them. What will be best for you?
Other than withdrawal, are there any other pitfalls to be aware of when people make a transition to a plant-based diet?
Absolutely. If you are on medications like not cholesterol, blood pressure medicines or diabetes medicines, please don't do this on your own. Do it with the help of a physician who knows how to do this, because you can really quickly be on too many medicines. And that can drop your blood pressure too much, which can get you in trouble, or drop your sugars too much, which can get you in trouble. So you need to do it with physicians who know how to take you off the medicines quickly, so that you don't have side effects of too much medication. So that is one of the biggest things. Another big thing that people get mad at me about is they need a whole new wardrobe.
Oh, yeah.
And that's, I used to have my thin wardrobe and my fat wardrobe. I don't have my fat wardrobe anymore because I don't need it anymore. And I just don't have it. But for over 40 years, I had 2 wardrobes that I could go back and forth in. And now I just don't. So that can be an issue. Obviously family can be an issue. But in terms of side effects, the side effects you're going to feel from going plant-based are sleeping better, pooping better, your skin and hair feel is better, your energy is better, your mood is better. The side effects are just positive. I've had people who and this happened to me, so this is why it came up. I used to have terrible gums, bleeding gums all the time. Don't anymore. Some people's vision changes and gets better, and they need to change their glasses because their vision changes, especially for diabetics who have sugar issues.
Wow.
So you can see some side effects of people like, oh, wait, I'm pooping too much. No, this is normal. You're now doing normal things. And you do have people who say you're getting too thin. Probably not. You're just used to a society where overweight is now the new normal and unhealthy is the new normal. So people get concerned. I don't want to be teased for being too thin. I don't want people to, and so we talk about all of the psychological components of seeing yourself differently. It took me 10 years to not see myself as big because I was 50 pounds heavier than I am now for most of my life. And I still sometimes think of myself as big, and I'm not. So there's psychological changes that you got to get used to. So, but they're all good. It's very different.
Yeah, I think one, as you said, the perception that they've lost too much weight. I had one friend that abandoned it because he just said he lost too much weight. I mean, imagine that as a problem. Like most people would dream to have that problem. But I said, well, eat more high calorie, healthy foods, more nuts and seeds, more dates, more avocados, that sort of thing. And, get your calories up a little bit, and then that shouldn't be a problem anymore. I have a fairly high calorie need, so I eat a fair bit of Ezekiel bread, which is a very healthy bread. Bread being a little bit higher in calorie density. Peanut butter, dates, avocados. I mean, it's still a very high carbohydrate diet. But that way you can get in the calories that you need to sustain, your workouts or whatever. Okay. Supplements. Any supplements that you recommend when you're on a plant-based diet?
Yes. I definitely recommend B12 for most people. I do, try and check levels for people because some people get enough B12 in B12 fortified foods, but B12 is something that is in the micronutrients of soil. And so if you're eating plant-based, we don't take our carrots and eat it. We wash off it. And our soil is now damaged by, pesticides and things like that. And we don't drink water out of rivers anymore. So it can be low in many, many plant-based people, but also in meat-eating people. Now, they give B12 supplements to a lot of the animals in CAFOs, in factory farmed animals, so that you get the B12 from that. But there's many, many non-plant-based people, many meat eaters that are B12 deficient. So B12 is an important one. Vitamin D, which is not from food, it's really from the sun. And as we get older, sometimes we don't convert as well. If you live in a place where it's cold and you're covered up in the winter time, you might want to do that. Make sure you're getting that. There's controversy about omega-3s, fatty acids, DHA and EPA, which are very important, and whether you're getting enough from the ALA, from the plant-based ALA, which is converted down to DHA and EPA. And so checking levels can be important, or just supplementing. And this is something that people say, well, I need fish oil for, and you had mentioned earlier, you don't need fish oil. Fish get it from algae. So cut out the middleman that has the contamination, stop depleting our oceans, and just get it from clean made algae. Or there is ahi flower, which is a plant that's really tough to eat. So it has to be processed to make ahi flower, which is not ALA, but SDA, which is in the pathway to become DHA and EPA. So you can have an ahi flower.
How do you spell that? I've never heard of that.
It's like ahi tuna, AHI.
Oh, okay.
And flour. And so you can use that, but checking your DHA EPA level may be helpful, or eating tons of flax seeds, ground flax seeds, which have great ALA, or hemp seeds with some SDA and, DHA, EPA. Or walnuts can be really good to eat. So it just depends on each individual. So let's see, we've got B12, D, DHA, EPA. Another one that I do pay attention to in plant-based eaters is iodine, because we cut out iodized salt a lot because we're eating much more plant-based. And so you can get low in iodine, which can be a problem if you're not eating plant-based sea vegetables, seaweeds, things like that. So that's something that you may want to pay attention to and talk to your doctor about.
Okay. Now, one that comes up from time to time is zinc. Do you have any thoughts on zinc? Is that something we should supplement with, or?
I personally love to get as much of my nutrients from foods, whole foods. So I don't worry about it so much when I do things like chronometer, which is where you put in your food for a day and see what you're in. I'm never low on zinc. So it doesn't bother me. So it just depends on, you can check a zinc level and see, but you can also put your food in chronometer as long as you're getting a variety of healthy foods. Eat the rainbow, try and eat 30 different foods a week. If you're just eating fruit, if you're a fruitarian and you're not eating anything else, or if you're just eating and it's only one kind of fruit, if you're only eating bananas, that's not healthy either. You want to have a good variety. And if you have that variety, you're going to have plenty of all of the essential amino acids, essential fatty acids. I mean, you're going to have enough. But again, that depends on your individual, and we can work on that. So I honestly don't worry about zinc for myself, but that depends on, and there are certain plant-based oriented supplements out there. I don't love supplements because you don't know what's really in them if they're not third-party tested. You don't know even the coverings of them, like if you're taking a capsule, they're on they're in factories and they pick up heavy metals. So I don't go, like, I ask people to have turmeric and a little bit of black pepper for inflammation, but I don't love turmeric tablets because you don't know what's in the capsule part of it. Better to just have the powder, the turmeric, and put it in your food, so I'm much more of eating as whole food as you can than supplementing.
We have the same approach, and those are the only supplements that I would even consider. There was a time I was on this years ago. I was on this supplement craze, and I was taking like 30 or 40 supplements, and then eventually I realized this is just crazy, and I stopped and got educated on the plant-based nutrition. But actually, interestingly, years ago, I did the certification in anti-aging medicine through the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. And it was actually really interesting, but it was very much oriented towards sort of a paleo diet and a lot of supplements. And then eventually I realized, they're missing the main thing, which is nutrition. And I listened to an interview just this morning when I was walking the dog with Dr. Greger. And really, he says basically nutrition is the key. That is the key to longevity. And like, people have this expectation that it's going to be some sort of fancy DNA therapy or stem cell therapy or whatever, but it just comes down to what we're eating. I came across some very interesting statistics recently for another podcast another video I'm working on. If you look at people and you replace 3% of their calories from meat with plant-based protein, the all-cause mortality drops 10%. And if it's egg protein that you're replacing, it's like 20%. It's staggering. Of course, the flip side of that is, well, if you replace plant protein with animal protein, you're raising your all-cause mortality, which is an argument right there against, carnivore and keto. But nonetheless, I find this whole stuff just really fascinating, particularly in the context of working in mainstream medicine and just seeing how this is just something that we're just completely overlooking. I mean, it's just not on the radar screen, unfortunately, in most doctors. But, thanks to efforts for people like you and to some degree, people like me, we're trying to change that. But we've been talking for over an hour. We could probably talk for about three more. We're really grateful for you taking the time to spend with us. And thanks again. We'll do it again sometime.
Thank you. And thank you for all you do to help improve people's lives. It's just so important. And it's I appreciate you and what you and your wife do. And let's just spread this news. I wish it would spread faster.
We will put information up about Love Life Telehealth and your practice so people can get in touch with you if they're looking for a doctor like you that can really help them out. So
it's awesome. I work with 10 other wonderful physicians, and we cover most of the states. And if you can look there and see, if I'm not in the state that you're in, my coworkers are amazing. They really understand lifestyle medicine, and we live the lifestyles that we prescribe for our patients. So, and we've been through things. We each have our own specialties and our own interests and our own experiences. And it's a great brain trust so that you can get not just one, but all of us.
Yeah. So I understand you work together. So are all 50 states covered?
We aren't quite at this time. We were, and now I think we're 2 or 3 states short, but we're working back to get all 50 states covered. And I have patients who, for example, I'm licensed in New York, but not New Jersey. So if you can drive over, if you're close enough to the line and can drive over, I can see you there. And I have patients who do that.
Okay.
But we're trying to make sure we get all 50 states covered. We don't right now, unfortunately, but we will again.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Okay, well, thanks again.
Thank you so much. And I love what you do. Keep up the great work.